Welcome back to Real Estate Mindset. Today's video is going to be absolutely bonkers. I have a guest star with us today here to talk about real estate, here to give his very, very valuable opinion, someone I highly respect, none other than my man, Steve Daria. Steve, how are you, brother?
I'm doing excellent, Travis. Appreciate you having me on. How you doing?
I'm doing, man. I'll be honest, Steve. I'm overwhelmed, dude. We got so many things, so many different irons in the fire, so much different data. I got, my family, my full-time job, dude. I'm overwhelmed, Steve. Thanks for asking. I appreciate it. But, I want to let my subscribers know why you're with us today. First of all, y'all, Steve is with us today to talk about the default bubble that I believe that we're currently in. I believe we're in a bubble of default. I believe that bubble is going to pop. It's going to lead to a surge in foreclosure. But it's really important, like I've done in another video with Scott, I want to get like-minded people, even if they don't share my exact opinion. I want them to share with you guys, my subscribers and my viewers, their own opinions and their own interpretation of the data. I think that's really, really important, Steve, just because none of us has a crystal ball, right? We're really just kind of speculating. Wouldn't you agree?
I couldn't agree more, man. Just like George Gammon says, there's only probabilities and no certainties. And it's good to hear a lot of different opinions based on the research that we all put in as YouTubers. So I appreciate you and your channel as well, man.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. And just so you guys know, Steve, he's a YouTuber, he's a broker, he's an investor. I mean, the guy has a tremendous amount of real estate experience. How much experience do you have in real estate? How many years, Steve?
Got my real estate license in 2003. Bought my first home around that time too. Started investing around that time. Opened up our real estate brokerage in 2006. Recruited a bunch of real estate agents. Been through the crash and everything, and eventually we sold our real estate firm in 2018.
Did you have white hair in your beard back then?
Not as much.
I know, bro. It's really spiraled out of control in my beard. I mean, I hated it. I got patches. I'm like, what? I asked my dad, I'm like, why do I have patches of white in my beard? Like, why can't it be blended? He said he's got to start somewhere. So it is what it is. But you guys do me a favor, before we really dig into the default data, do me a favor, like this video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And as soon as you guys are done liking my video, hop over to Steve's channel. I'm going to pull that up right now so you guys can see. Steve's channel is obviously his name. It's right here. I want you guys to immediately subscribe to his channel. Now, again, the reason why I really, really love, his channel and Steve and why he's here, he's talking about very, very important subjects. He's not necessarily a content creator where he's only going after the algorithm per se. And if you're a YouTuber, you understand how important that algorithm is. But Steve is really focused on giving back really important data. Like, for example, Steve, I really loved your piece on mortgage-backed securities. So as well as I, man, if that algorithm doesn't love the video and you're not talking about what the algorithm wants you to talk about, it suppresses your message. It doesn't push you the same way. And that's why I wanted you here, man. I want people to hear your perspective. You're a lot more, and forgive me for saying this, you're a lot more grounded than me, right? I absolutely love your explanation. I feel like you have more to say. And anyways, brother, so we're going to get started now. I just want to make sure, Steve, that you can see the data that I'm going to bring up here on our screen. Can you see this okay?
Yep.
Okay. So one thing that this doesn't say on this specific chart here is, the serious delinquency rate. The serious delinquency rate is right here at 595,000. This is actually 45% above pre-pandemic, even though it says it's down 1 million people, right? It says it's down 1 million people, but it's 45% above pre-pandemic. So the first question, Steve, I have for you, and again, brother, I really appreciate you giving back to our subscribers, to my channel. You're very valuable to me in my life. So first question is very general. What do you find most interesting about this data? And this is updated data from May from Black Knight.
I mean, it's compelling. I think that data combined with the data that came from HUD that comes out every month. I mean, I think we have a big issue with default, and I think even the moratorium I mean, well, what was it like at the peak of the forbearance moratorium was 8.55%,
Yeah.
which is huge. That was like over 4 million people were not paying their mortgages.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now that's down to about 425,000. And I think that a lot of those loans got modified and they got extended out. They maybe had rate buy downs as well, maybe extended out for 40 years or whatever the case. But unfortunately, I think that a good portion of them are still financially probably in some sort of financial turmoil. So I think that we're going to see those go back into a default situation. And then what do we have right now? Total delinquencies right now, mortgages are what, 4.5 million, I believe.
So delinquencies in May were at one total delinquencies, not counting foreclosures, is at 1.46 million. This is now, remember, this is as of May. So this is lagging behind greatly, right? So we're behind 45 days on this. But as of May, we're at 1.46 in delinquency, and then we're at 595,000 serious delinquency.
Yeah, I mean, all together, I think it's not good news for the housing market. I think that's just going to be one sector that will start to come to market for at needed inventory that we do need, that's going to hit the market, along with other inventory that's going to come from other investors, landlords that are not receiving rent payments, and even larger institutional investors that I think that will start unloading inventory once they can't necessarily service the debt from the cheap debt that they've been receiving.
Yeah. And I forgot to make this clear, but one of the reasons I'm keeping the foreclosure data in light, if you will, Steve, is because a lot of people who argue against a crash or negative equity growth, cool down, correction, whatever it is, drop in house values. A lot of people that argue it for three reasons. Number one, supply. We're now starting to see supply skyrocket, not in every area, and you're in Florida. So I know you're probably going to lag behind the rest of us. So I want to get your take on that. But number one is supply. Now that we've had month after month of double digit, like in the 20s supply increase, boom and boom. And in my local area, I think we're over 100% increase in supply. So, I already know supply is surging. The data is coming out that supply is surging. So that's kind of out of the bag. So I'm not really touching on that. Another thing is unemployment. People are saying unless unemployment goes up, we're not going to have a crash. Unemployment's already happening. Especially in real estate, Loan Depot just laid off thousands of people. But the third thing is that people's argument is we can't have a crash or negative equity unless there's a foreclosure crash. Now, I don't agree with that. I think that we can have negative equity without it, but I still think it's important to talk about the defaults and the foreclosures because it is somewhere where we're going to have the inventory, right? We're going to get inventory, and I see a problem brewing. And the problem with the data right now, Stephen, in my mind, it's not dependable. It's really difficult to look at something when you have on one hand historical low delinquency rate, right? So it's a 2.75%. It's supposed to be historically low, and a historically low foreclosure rate, but yet we have a massive surge in serious delinquencies. So record, on one hand, we're in great situation. On the other hand, it's really hard to notice the bubble that we're in, which is the default. So can you talk? My second question is, as far as foreclosure starts, Steve, I mean, do you find this? So here's the first thing. Here's foreclosure starts. So it's saying foreclosure starts are up 394%. Obviously, last year, the foreclosures were banned. So anything that you compare to last year is going to be inflated. But then also look at this. So this is the total U.S. delinquency rate, 2.75%. That's down, according to this, year over year, 41%. So that looks like we are headed in the right direction. Can you tell me if we can, and in your opinion, is this data really explaining the story here? Those two things, the starts and the delinquency?
Yeah, well, let me touch real quick on what's going on in our market, because I've been researching some of the foreclosures that have hit the market, which is very few and far between. I think the banks are actually making money on the foreclosures.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
so I think that we might actually see some of these lending institutions recognize that there are actually realized gains where they're not necessarily losing money on them, and they're going to start pushing these things through. So I think that we might see an uptick of expediting the foreclosure process,
Yeah.
instead of letting it lag behind. But yeah, I mean, based on that economic outlook and where we're headed with a recession and unemployment, and I think we're going to see massive job losses. I mean, what is it, like 40% of publicly traded companies are basically losing money or insolvent? So,
Well, 100% on my portfolio, but I'm not even joking. I mean, I hear all the NASDAQ's down only 28%. Well, my portfolio is down a lot more than that, right?
yeah.
I mean, people are suffering, man. People are absolutely, suffering. And the layoff, like you're touching, touch more on the layoffs that you're talking.
And there's been, I mean, we had so much stimulus, and people still had a certain level of savings that they had stock, some had stockpiled, but that money is running dry. And we're seeing it with credit card debt exploding as well, where I think people are starting to really finance the important things like groceries and so forth, so they can have money still left over to basically pay the necessary bills like, housing. And then not to mention, the defaults on auto loans now. I mean, I think that's just the really the telling sign of where we're headed. And as things get worse and worse, we're going to see more and more delinquencies. And one pushback that I get a lot on my channel is people say, people are locked into 30-year fixed rates at 2.75. How are they ever going to default? And I'm like, you don't understand. Like, it doesn't matter how good the rate is. It matters primarily what they paid for and where current day value is. So, like, prime example, in our local area, there's, out of the top 10 metro areas, 6 are in Florida in terms of the highest cancellations of contracts last month, and Cape Coral being one of them. And I've been saying this. I'm like, I did another video and I said, keep an eye out, because I said Cape Coral, Sarasota, anytime the media is saying the hottest metro markets, here they are, like almost promoting it like, people should go and rush there and move there because it's so hot. And I look at it like, dude, that's going to be the areas where I'm going to go in and buy a bunch of cheap real estate when shit hits the fan.
Yeah, for pennies on the dollar. And isn't it shocking to you, man, that so essentially what we have here is we have people's savings are just from 1 year ago, and I've looked at this data, people's savings are like gutted. They're like down 60, 70%, some outrageous amount from 1 year ago. So we've lost all of our money, which I would argue that we never had it in the first place. It was stimulus. People are wasting it on Louis Vuitton bags. It's just shocking to me. So on one hand, we have like plummeting savings right now. And then on another hand, we have like this overwhelming amount of credit card debt and of car loan defaults. Isn't it shocking to you that essentially transpired in less than half a year?
Yes. And so going through the last real estate recession, it was horrible. I mean, we listed hundreds and hundreds of short sales. We helped a lot of people out, but it was kind of slow moving. I feel like I've never seen the real estate market move as quickly as it has, appreciation wise, and where we're at today. I mean, I believe we peaked out and we are headed on a decline. How quickly that decline will be, I think it's going to happen. It could happen as quickly as we inclined over that 2-year period. So I think at a minimum, home values will probably go back down to pre-pandemic at a minimum. Now, depending on, obviously, Travis, the wild card is what the hell the Fed's going to do.
I know, man.
And the current administration. So the Fed tomorrow could say, we're going to go back to quantitative easing. We're going to go back to buying mortgage-backed securities. We're going to go and we're going to actually drop the Fed rate. Then then inflation will turn into hyperinflation and be really bad, but they could try to do that to kind of save the housing market. I don't see that happening. I think it's only going to get worse for housing, just like every other freaking bubble that happened. And I think we're going to trend down, and we're starting to see it.
Yeah. So, good points. And I'm going to go into Florida here in a minute, but so Steve, the fact that the serious delinquency rate is okay. So serious delinquency rate, 45% above pre-pandemic, savings plummeted. Seems like everyone's in debt, right? In my mind, there's only a matter of time before that default bubble, right? This 45% of pre-pandemic, that bubble is going to pop. Primary reason, even though I think that being in debt and losing your savings is a big deal, right? That's going to add to the problem of unaffordability, right? But what happens when homes are no longer appreciating? What happens when people start losing value? That's when I think the foreclosure is going to surge. The foreclosure wave is going to surge, because right now, Steve, as well as I, no one should be going into foreclosure because you could just sell your house, right? Yep. The number 50 state is still year over year 10% in equity year over year. So people should should be able to sell their houses immediately. That's why I'm saying this data is hard to read. You have to look at affordability, right? Yep. We're not looking at rates. We're not looking at 6%. We're looking at, can people still afford their mortgage payment now that we're in a runaway inflation situation? And I'm saying no. And part of that pressure, loss of savings, overwhelming debt. But the moment that people can no longer sell their houses, that's when that bubble pops. What do you think?
I think you're spot on. And honestly, unfortunately, logic goes out the window. I think a lot of logic went out the window when people were, paying peak prices for real estate. And I, again, in the last real estate recession, I literally sat down at the kitchen table with hundreds of people that were losing their homes, and by doing a short sale was a way out so that they didn't have to foreclose. But I can tell you, in those conversations, I asked them, why did it basically take why didn't you sell your house before it got to this point?
Exactly.
And I can tell you the consensus with most of them was I thought I was going to be able to get back up on my feet. And I think that is the mentality for a lot of people. Instead of thinking logically, where right now, let's say husband and wife, husband gets laid off, now it's just the wife, and now they're kind of struggling along or whatever. And instead of them sitting down and say, you know what, look, we got 50,000 after all closing costs, we got 50 grand of equity. If we sell right now, let's go ahead and do that. People don't think logically like that in many cases. And that's honestly part of my channel, is just saying, like, dude, if you know somebody in this situation, please pass along this video and try to talk some sense into them.
Dude, you know what, man, I'm really glad that you touched on that, because, there's a lack, when the 2008 collapse happened, really, I feel like used car salesman just turned into loan modifications salesman. Yeah. And that did absolutely crap for the pitcher and whole. So, we lacked a lot of those short sell specialists. And I actually, on my own condo that I lost in 2008, I try to do a short sell, to avoid foreclosure myself. But the listing agent that I choose back then, I mean, she didn't know what she was doing. She had no care. She just listed it, set it and forget it. And, eventually it led to foreclosure. And, the problem with the foreclosure was not only that it destroyed my credit for 7 to 10 years, dude, the deficiency notice, the deficiency notice from losing my house, it was $180,000. Wow. So the IRS taxed me on $180,000. I ended up owing $130,000. But I mean, dude, I didn't have $130,000. I lost everything. I didn't have $130,000. And that's why I'm trying to ring the bell as well. Like, y'all, sit it out. If you're struggling, so this would be my opinion, because we're not financial advisors. If you're struggling right now to make your payment, you need to sell your house right now before it's too late. And I'm not trying to get leads. I'm not going to sell your house. If someone reached out to me in Texas and Houston, and this is just my own situation, I'm not going to sell your house. I'm not going to do it. That's not what I'm doing right now. I'm telling people, I'm ringing the alarm. If you cannot afford right now, because inflation is getting worse, school loans haven't started, taxes really haven't, assessed values really haven't kicked in yet for property taxes. Sell your house, because you may not be able to sell your house a year from now. And the options that you have to get out of that, man, there's not a lot of good options.
And if I can touch on 2 points on that too.
Yeah.
For one thing, people don't take in consideration closing costs either. So that's going to eat away at any kind of equity that you have. And I tell people, you don't have equity. Like, I don't look at equity in any real estate that I've owned until I sold that thing.
Yeah.
I look at it like it's an asset on the books, but it's recognized a gain, but it's not a realized gain until you sell. And when you sell, there's costs associated with it. So take that into consideration. Also, I predict the banks are going to get so overwhelmed. They did not learn from the last crash, Travis. They didn't. And I think you know it. I know it. A lot of people that went through it. So right now, I think the turmoil is starting to kick up, and the banks, the insiders are really trying to figure out what the hell they need to do. And there's probably going to be a hiring spree into that field. So if you guys are losing your job as a mortgage lender or a broker, whatever the case is, look, go talk to a bank about going into their distressed asset division, because they're going to hire like crazy.
That's exactly what happened last time. You remember when all the consolidations happened, like banks buying banks? I remember, there would be entire buildings of loss mitigation people internally trying to save people, and it bottlenecked. I mean, they could not do nothing, right? I mean, they had this huge department, all these resources. It was such a slow process. I mean, so I think we can both agree that, obviously there's a default bubble. People are struggling on their payments. Maybe they got used to how things were. It's now reality again. I mean, it's dangerous, man. I mean, even you yourself, tell me about your situation, Steve. Do you own real estate right now? I know you're an investor. Tell me about your situation.
I sold everything, Travis, every piece of real estate. I thought,
Are you renting?
Well, this condo right here, we're actually doing a lease back. So, and I did a video on this. It's probably going to come out tomorrow, pertaining to George Gammon. And he basically says you can't figure out the bottom or the top. He goes, but I just buy assets cheap and I sell them when they're expensive. So in 2018, he was selling most of his real estate, and so was I. And at that point in time, I thought, and you could look at the Fed rate, like, type in Fed rate plus Fred, and you're going to see that chart where they kept creeping the rate up. And then also, and this is before the pandemic, they dropped it down to bring short-term rates down. And sure enough, like, that's when I was like, yeah, shit's about to hit the fan. And then obviously all of a sudden we have a pandemic that completely blew things out of whack. So right now, no, I'm going to buy a lot of cheap distressed assets when the time comes.
Yeah.
And I'll touch on something real quick too. We made an offer on a house over in Fort Myers Beach, and they were priced at like 9.25, something like that. And I came in at 650, and going back and forth, they were firm at like 850, and then they came down to 8.25. And I was like, no, it's not going to work. They stayed on the market. They came back to us, and the agent's like, he'll. Wow. Some heavy thunder and lightning going on.
Oh my gosh.
Typical Florida storm in the summer.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, the agent comes back and says, he'll take 670. And I'm like, nah, I'm firm. So anyway, if I bought that, and it's a house on a canal across the street from the beach, if I bought that house and locked it into the data on Fort Myers Beach, I compare in terms of comparable sales.
Yes.
That would have been $200,000 below the most recent sold comp in that area. People are I would say the smarter sellers understand what's going on, and they're dropping price and they're selling their assets. Sellers need a rude awakening. If your property is on the market right now and it's sitting and you're not getting offers, you need to drop price to get ahead of the curve. And again, just like Travis said, it's not everywhere. Real estate is micro, and it's important. Everybody understands that. Like,
yes.
I get hate on my channel. They're like, no, our real estate market's still blowing up, and I live in Connecticut, whatever. Yeah, I get it. So the community down the street might be different than Bonita Beach here. So
100%.
it's all micro.
It is micro. I mean, and that's why I'm constantly telling my subscribers that are frustrated, especially on, the East Coast, Boston, Las Vegas, all over Florida. Like if you're losing it, if you're freaking out, like look at someone else's market.
Yep.
Right. And that's why I'm doing my Thursday update videos. But thank God my local market is like massively changing. If it's not happening in your market, look to other markets, because that trend will eventually touch your metro area. Some metro areas are obviously going to fall behind. Like, for example, in my local market, my inventory surged over 100%. But I go into little pockets in Houston, it's down 37%. But the trend, the majority, it's spreading, and it's spreading quickly. But just to go back on my last question. So you are renting, or you're about to rent. I could tell you this, my friend, it sucks. I hate it, man. I hate it, but it makes sense right now, right? Like if we weren't in this situation, I would say you're crazy. You're wasting your money on rent, but I would rather waste my money for a year and a half than be trapped upside down, put that pressure on my family, put that pressure on my finances, be trapped. I'm not going to do it again. I learned my lesson, right? And the bubble's going to burst, dude. The bubble's going to burst. I think we can both see that coming. But if you can, Steve, because I got a lot of subscribers from Florida. All right. And my heart goes out to them, especially if they're watching this. Can you talk about your local markets, but mainly what you're saying on the coastal towns on the east side and the west side? Can you tell us if you're starting to see at the very least a cooling down? Can you speak into that a little bit?
Yeah, no doubt. So I'm on the west coast of Florida, Southwest Florida. We're absolutely seeing a cool down. As I mentioned, 6 of the top 10 metro areas are located in Florida in terms of the highest cancellation rates last month. And I had to dig deeper. I did own a condo over in Fort Lauderdale, and this is the problem, paying attention to some bloggers and mainstream media, because there was a lot of talk about the Miami and Fort Lauderdale market still just, but guess what? Those markets actually had a significant cancellation rate in last month.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that. And a couple of videos, I said, those markets are going to take probably a little bit more time to correct. So a lot of, and Tampa is slowing down, Orlando's slowing down, Jacksonville's slowing down. We are seeing more inventory hit. One thing before I forget, I think it's important in terms of macro with the real estate economy. The last real estate recession really only affected, because there was a lot of speculation. Obviously, it was a different market, different crash. Yeah. But it was a ton of speculation that drove prices up. But they were, if you look at it, they were in majority were in cyclical markets, the hot markets like Vegas and areas in Florida, right? Mm-hmm. What I'm looking at is almost every area throughout the United States, not to mention just the United States either, exploded in value because of what the Fed did.
Exactly.
So I think we're going to see even small Midwestern towns start to feel the effect. They're not right now, but it goes to your point, Travis, is people have to start looking at other areas that are starting to feel the pain, because that's probably what's going to happen in their area. Prime example, my brother, he's in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and he's talking about his home value, and he's like, Steve, it's insane what it's worth. This is several months back. And I go, bro, sell it. And he's like, my wife will kill me. I was like, sell your freaking house. And I was like, your house should not be worth X dollars. And, it basically doubled in price almost. And I was like, obviously you have University of Alabama there, but he's in the suburbs, kind of far out of the actual university. His house should not have appreciated the way it did. And I'm seeing that all over the place. Even, houses in bad areas of like Detroit that were selling for 30 grand are now selling for 150. It's a macro bubble. It is, in my opinion.
And I agree with you, man. And I think that's the proof, right? So, the whole argument with supply, man, I really don't entertain it anymore, because we've already had a massive surge in supply. I think we're going to be pre-pandemic this year, but dude, this happened because of the Federal Reserve.
Yep.
Not only were interest rates lowered into the 2%, that drops everyone's DTI, that drops everyone's mortgage payment. So they made the mortgage payments unrealistic. But not only that, remember also the other most difficult thing for normal home buyers when it comes to purchasing is saving for the down payment. The government gave everyone the down payment. This problem is because of demand. Supply being low and supply doesn't help. I'm not saying it helps, but we're in the situation because they opened the floodgates and almost everyone could buy a house. Like in 08, they deregulated in 02. You open the floodgates, doesn't matter your inventory, it's going to come crashing down. Okay, we don't need the inventory. I think we're going to get it. I apologize for that rambling, bro. That's why I'm glad you're here, man. I feel like you're the balance. But I have a couple more questions, bro, and I really appreciate your time. And I'm going to try to push you into the corner a little bit here, because our subscribers like a little bit of specificity. So can you touch on when do you think, in my opinion, is into 2023? I think maybe first quarter, maybe second quarter. But when do you think that we're going to start noticing the actual surge of foreclosures?
That's a great question. I think we'll probably see it in the fourth quarter of this year, but more so first quarter of next year. Yeah. And I think that, like, right now, I checked my local MLS, there's 16 foreclosures on the market for sale, and there was like 4 short sales. It's insane. Yeah. And here's my thought. I think when it hits, it's going to hit freaking hard.
Yeah, I think so.
Like I said, the banks are going to be overwhelmed, but like, you can't, like, that's not even a normal real estate market. Like, you have a certain amount of distress in a flat real estate market. You have a certain level of distressed assets that come to market naturally. The government effed that up big time. They stopped the natural supply of foreclosures and everything coming to market. Now it's just building up. Yes, some have equity, and yes, some are gonna maybe get their stuff together and try to figure out selling their house. But you got to understand. Let me touch on this real quick, because I listed foreclosure properties and short sales. But when we would go and they would hire us to go and list the property, the first thing was boots on the ground. We go to a property, and some of these were already taken in possession of the bank. They were not owned by the bank yet. They were literally taken in possession, meaning the bank sends people out to these field guys to actually go and see if there's anybody living in there. If there's nobody living in there, the bank will take possession of that property before they even foreclosed on it. They're gonna clean it up. They're gonna make it safe. They're gonna insure the property. Because they have to protect the asset.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I bet you we are going to see, mark my words on this, we're going to see properties that you're going to go into a foreclosure that's listed. Keep an eye on a piece of paper. It's going to be near the front door or the garage. And you're going to see every time that field guy went in there, he's going to date it. And basically they have to check on it every
a certain amount of time to see it's vacant.
Yeah. So what we're going to see is look at the date at the very top, or it might be multiple pages, and you'll probably see how long they've actually had that property.
Yeah.
And they never ended up foreclosing on it. They had possession of it. So I bet you these properties, they're clean from the outside, but you have they're vacant, but people don't understand that the bank already had possession of it. So I bet we're going to see a lot of these probably pre-pandemic. So some of them from 18, 19, that you're going to see that sheet, and it's going to show like first inspection 2018, whatever, and property is vacant. We mowed the lawn, this and this and this. We're going to see that. And I bet you there's a lot more of those homes out there that people have no idea about.
Now, I mean, I know there is, man. I know this wave is coming. I'm going to add one more question to it, because I think this is important. And I have really a hard time answering this question, Steve, because I lost everything in the last collapse. So when you lose everything, right, and then now I'm going into another collapse and I'm well prepared, it's hard. I get a little biased. But my question is, and again, man, I've sat and I've thought about this. Like, do I really think this? Do you think this correction, crash, whatever, negative equity growth, do you think it will be worse than the financial collapse and the Great Reset, than the last housing bubble of 2008? Do you think it's going to be worse from an equity depreciation standpoint?
Yes. And I think one of the bigger things that we didn't necessarily have in the last real estate recession was the amount of debt. We're in a big debt bubble, and it's not just real estate, it's everything. It's credit card debt, it's car debt, it's government debt. The Fed is not going to be able to raise rates like Volcker did in the freaking late 70s. There's no way, because the government's not going to be able to service that debt. So I think we're in a huge debt bubble. I think we're going to see a lot of bankruptcies. We're going to see a lot of foreclosures. And if it does, I mean, I don't know if you follow Ray Dalio, but I mean, he's talking the 100-year bubble basically, and we're basically there. I mean, if you follow what he's saying, it's going to be really bad. And that's kind of I think the whole point of your channel as well as mine is we're just trying to get the word out. And people are like, oh, you're fear mongering, whatever. I'm like, no, we're bringing you data. We're bringing you some of our experience and everything else. And like you, Travis, man, I went through it, man. I ended up short selling a condo that I had. It sucked. And then a switch went off in my head. I go, look, I'm keeping my personal expenses as low as possible. I moved into my office for 7 months,
man,
and did what I had to do. And then I literally bottomed out. I bought a condo for 21 grand cash. And I was like, I'm living the freaking life, because now everything was cheap. But
see, and that's what I don't want people to miss that, Steve. That's why I'm freaked out. It's like, dude, like, does it, I mean, if you got to wait a year, is that really a big deal? Like, just wait a year. Dude, I missed out on what you had because of the foreclosure. Like, I couldn't buy a 30,000, like I saw it drove me crazy, Steve. I mean, it was depressing. I saw so many good opportunities to purchase shortly after 09 but my hands were tied, brother.
Yep.
My hands were tied. It led to bankruptcy. I mean, my life was ruined because I didn't stop to think. That's what I knew. There were rumors the housing markets are going to crash, but I was just stuck in my life. I was in the fast lane. It was SoCal, and I acted like a child instead of an adult. And it was really easy to do that. And I have good principles, brother. I mean, I was raised right, but I got caught up, and I don't want that to happen to other people. So yeah, man. And I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's just, dude, I mean, I lost everything, brother. Yeah. And so people doom and gloom. I didn't make the doom and gloom. I want to talk about the top 5 cities to invest in. That's what I want. I want to say, hey, hit me up. I'm going to help you buy so that I can make more money. But the reality is, man, I've taken steps back from origination because I don't have the heart. I don't have the heart to put people in these houses. I just don't believe in it. But so your answer was yes. You think it's going to be worse? That's heavy, bro.
Real quick, to all of Travis's viewers, what he just said right there is probably one of the most important things that you're going to understand about him and his character. Not putting people into mortgages that he knows that could eventually go into a default situation. And I know a lot of lenders, they don't care. They're going to talk you into, as well as real estate. And I am a real estate broker. They would talk you into, because they don't get paid until they close the deal, close the loan, close the real estate transaction. And for Travis to not make money to look out for other people, that's going to come back to you 100-fold, bro. And you're prepping for this market just like I am. And we're going to make a lot of money, and hopefully we're going to bring a lot of our viewers with us to make a lot of money. And if I could touch on something too, even if you made mistakes, I'm saying, like, people right now, if they are making some financial mistakes, it's okay, because there are ways to rebuild without necessarily the best credit and everything else. But a big thing is you just got to start stacking cash. I think we're going to see a lot of owner finance deals. There's a lot of people that own real estate in the United States that are free and clear, and they don't want to be landlords anymore. They want to sell. They don't want to deal with a leaky toilet. They would be happy to hold a mortgage. And those people are going to be out there, and you got to find them, but you're going to have that cash downstroke. So start prepping now.
Yeah, I agree, man. I mean, And that's why I feel so blessed, dude, because, I've always, the last 3 years of my career, I've really focused a lot on like public speaking and events and education and basically getting in front of hundreds of agents, realtors, specifically realtors per week, and then just teaching them. Right. So, I absolutely love it, man. But I really love, that's why I'm so humbled by my YouTube channel, man. I finally feel like I'm able to help who I really want to help. I want to help realtors. I want to help people, but I want to really, really help. And it's mad love to my subscribers, right? I'm not talking any trash, but dude, the first time home buyers, right now, they don't know what they don't know. They have so much stacked against them. And the reality is a lot of those first time home buyers treat a realtor like God. And that's a massive problem because generally realtors are biased and led by that drive to get their commission. They don't get so. And I don't mean like God, but like, like that's their sort, that's who they trust. Right. And the thing is then when you look back, where do they find the realtor? It's their friends. It's their cousin. They go online. It's like, dude, what happened to interviewing? What happened to all that? What happened to people treating the transaction like it's supposed to be treated, like an important, biggest financial transaction in people's lives, right? It is a huge problem, bro. And I absolutely hate it. But, I get it. Not a lot of people, real estate's not important to them. That's fine, right? Do you, that's fine. It is what it is. But, I want to end on one more thing, bro. I know we've been talking a lot, Steve. Let me ask you this question. And it's a hard question. I get it. But I know you could talk about hard things, right? I believe, first of all, I think the most important thing that someone needs in order to purchase real estate is to be financially ready. I think that's the first, second, and third most important thing. So now that that's out of the way, from an overvaluation standpoint, when do you foresee buying coming back into the picture? Like when do you, based on your data and your own local market and the nation, when do you see that, you can possibly see yourself, recommending to purchase real estate again? I believe it's going to be the end of this year, right? The start, right? I believe the good deals next year, but what do you feel, Steve?
So we locked in a 6-month rental, not cheap in any sense, but it's a cool, it's a cool community in Naples. So it'll give, all of us a good experience there. But, so we're kind of taking a little bit of a break, which is cool. But, I think within 6 months, I'll be back in the market buying. I'm going to continue making offers. Like I was talking about that one on Fort Myers Beach. I think that I'll probably be able to get that same property, maybe a couple $100,000, even less, not necessarily in 6 months, but maybe 12, 18 months down the road. But we were talking, we'll probably buy something that we'll get into, fix up, and then wait another 6 months in that property and then turn that into a rental and then go into the next and the next. I would just say, the deal has to make sense for you and your family, especially if it's a first time home buyer, whatever the case is. And I think it's important that everybody's circumstances are different. Some people need a house but don't be afraid to make offers in this market. And I think that's vital. And it's like, don't get so emotionally attached to any one property. The piece of real estate is not going to get emotional for you. So why are you getting emotional for the piece of real estate? And get an agent that's willing to work with you and make multiple offers. One doesn't work, let's go on to the next. Let that offer sit out there, because those sellers will come back to you. I can't guarantee anything, but I've seen it so much that these sellers come back. And I can tell you right now, even the comment section, because I talk about this on my channel, I've seen this countless times, where somebody makes an offer, the seller didn't take it, and this is happening right now. And that the buyer is paying attention to the closed sale, and sure enough, it's closing below what that buyer originally offered, 2 months ago. So it's happening. And to touch on the first home buyer, because I'm a big believer in financial freedom and personal finance and everything else, learn how to house hack, especially for your first property. If you can buy, you can get into 4 or less units. I mean, Travis, you can tell me better. and buy that with FHA 3.5% down, get the seller to contribute toward the buyer's closing costs, get in, live in one unit and rent the other ones out, and you're living for free. Like, figure ways to do that. And that's how you're going to grow your wealth. And that's ultimately what I did over the years, and it served me right. And now, you know, I don't have anything to worry about financially because I've trained myself to do that. And it's not as hard as most people think.
No, man. And so basically, you think it's basically, we kind of share an opinion that you think it's maybe buying opportunity towards the end of this year, maybe the beginning of this year, but still track your local market, right? If something works for you, but don't settle, right? I'm telling people, if you're still out there trying to buy a house, you treat it like a buyer's market. You know, treat it like a buyer's market. Be mean, right? I want people to be mean. I want undervalue. I want incentives, paying closing costs. And another thing I'll say to like first-time home buyers, Steve, you know, and I may be wrong for this, but I think people that you know there's different types of people, but people that are self-empowering, people that are educating, they need to get their license, dude. Like, be your own realtor. You can use your realtor commission as a down payment. Yep. I can buy a house right now for 1% counting closing costs because I'm a licensed loan officer and a licensed realtor. So obviously, you know, I get all my closing costs paid either from the seller. I'll have the company work something out that I work for, and then I'll use the commission that I would normally make as a down payment, which you're allowed to do in loans. Normally you can't normally your down payment has to be your down payment on conventional FHA. Obviously VA, USDA doesn't have a down payment, but you know, I'm all about the empowerment, man, especially right now when we have to sit out like we are right now. Like, this is a great time to empower. Yeah. Right. Like, doom and gloom, but don't be paralyzed. Be empowered that you know what's going on. And we're saying to you guys, work on your credit, get another source of income. Dude, like, yes, bro, prepare. Cause like I agree. The buying opportunities is right around the corner, brother. But, and, you know, and the asset, I mean, the bubbles are all over the place. We got asset bubbles, we got credit card bubbles, used car bubbles, default bubbles. I mean, like, you see what, I'm not crazy, right? Like, you see this, right, Steve? Like, what? So the people that get so passionate, bro, I don't get it, man. Like, I'm not saying like, hey, you're stupid and you're evil and it's your fault. You know, like, I don't think that. I think people are a victim of not being educated, and they're a victim of trusting the wrong people. The realtors are failing, not all of them, right? And as a realtor, we can only advise, but I know for sure there are some realtors, dude, they're clueless. They are so clueless. It's so bad, dude. It's so bad. So I know it's out there. So, you know, I really hope, you know, we're giving value. I hope that my subscribers go to your channel. You know, I really love how you break things down, man. You have really special insights. You know, I feel like I do as well. You were also a victim, but you won through that. I lost through being the victim in 08. And you know what? I just was talking to Scott Walters, same thing. You guys have this almost a very similar situation. I was the dude that got left behind, though. You know, I was like, Steve, Scott, save me. I couldn't get saved, bro. It is what it is. But, you know, I think that you know, doom and gloomers, I think the reality is we, you know, just from the people I've talked to, we know more than most people, because not only did we go through it, we've been in this business for decades, brother. We don't have to wait for lagging data. I see what's going on right now. So anyways, man, you know, I'm not trying to get overly passionate. I'm trying to be mellow like you. You know, I always try to do that. But man,
you got good energy, man. Let me touch on something real quick. So I did a live stream yesterday on the obviously the CPI inflation report that came out. In that video, I asked, you know, I'm always looking for other YouTubers to watch and everything else pertaining to real estate or macroeconomics. And your name came up several times. Obviously, I've been following your channel for a while now, but it's funny because I think it's just like it's kind of a small population of YouTubers that are really passionate and talking about what's going on in the housing market and the economics associated with it. So, man, hands down, man, your channel's growing like crazy. And I just want to say that I know that others appreciate you, and I appreciate you too, man.
I appreciate that, brother. Well, so, you know, we've been talking for like 50 minutes, bro. I really appreciate your time. I'm gonna do my little outro real quick. But before I go, Steve, do you want to say anything else? Do you feel like you've said enough here? Do you want to end on anything, brother?
I would say just, keep watching Travis's channel and, make sure that you guys are making educated decisions on taking on debt, and make sure it's the debt that's going to put money in your pocket, not take money out of your pocket, and be smart with your finances. Cause there's going to be a lot of distressed assets. There's going to, if you want that Tesla, you want that Ford Raptor, you want all these things, you're gonna be able to buy them dirt cheap. I anticipate that happening. That's what I'm anticipating anyway. There's going to be a lot of opportunity, but those who prepare now, which we've been doing on our channels to kind of enlighten people, hopefully, just prepare now, and you guys are going to be able to grow your wealth tremendously. And Patrick Bet David said, everybody should be striving to throw another zero at the end of their net worth, and I'm working on that.
I think we're all working on that, brother. Easier said than done sometimes, especially if you invest poorly. All right, Steve. Well, I appreciate you, brother. Don't change for anyone. Sit tight. All right. I'm going to do my outro, but sit tight. Now, obviously, you guys go to his channel, show him some love. I'm telling you, I've listened to his videos. He has really, really important content as far as understanding the market. He's giving his honest opinion, and he went through it before. So usually you can lean on people like that. Now, obviously, you guys, thank you for watching this video. If you're out there investing in real estate, I do wish you luck, and I hope you win.